Have you ever attended your own funeral? Not in body, but in spirit. When the world gives up on you, writes your story in past tense, whispers your name like a ghost that once walked among them, even though your heart still beats and your soul still burns with the fire of betrayal, this is not just a tale. This is a storm I walked through, barefoot, bleeding, unseen. Imagine standing in the shadows, watching people gather, not to celebrate you, but to bury you, to read your name off trembling lips, engraved on folded pages of pity and fake sorrow. The same lips that once called you family, friend, love. Now they pronounce your absence like a prayer of relief. But I was still alive, breathing every lie, swallowing every betrayal, feeling every word like a dagger dipped in honey. The betrayal didn't come like thunder. It arrived quietly, like a whisper, from someone I trusted, someone who knew the sound of my heartbeat, someone who once held my tears like fragile glass and later shattered me with the same hands. There is a moment, a silent one, when betrayal changes from confusion to clarity, when you stop asking why and start accepting the weight of truth. That moment came for me when I saw my name written in the dirt of their goodbye. When I saw pictures removed, my seat taken, my memory erased, yet my body still walked this earth. Do you know what it feels like to be forgotten while you're still breathing? It's not death. It's worse. It's exile from hearts that once promised shelter. And yet, somehow, I didn't die. My soul screamed inside a body everyone thought had vanished. I wandered through places where my name had become a ghost story, where people spoke of me with pauses, as if afraid I might walk in, as if afraid their lies had not buried me deep enough. They say betrayal always comes from those closest to you, but no one tells you how it feels when it arrives not with a blade, but a smile. Not in anger, but in silence. They didn't even give me a chance to speak, to defend, to explain. They wrote my story without my voice. They chose endings I never agreed to. And still I stood. I watched as they moved on, as they lit candles for the memory of someone they misunderstood, as they mourned a version of me they had created, a version that didn't resist, didn't rise, didn't survive. But I was never gone. I was alive. And now I was awakened. There is something powerful in being buried alive. You learn to breathe without air. You learn to see without light. You learn to rise without help. This is where my story truly begins. Not at the moment they betrayed me, but the moment I realized I was still breathing, still burning, still becoming. So, ask yourself, what happens when the one they tried to bury finds their way back? What happens when the soul they silenced refuses to stay quiet? Because I didn't stay dead. I came back, not to beg, not to explain, but to rise for myself. Before the betrayal, before the silence, before the haunting echo of my name being read aloud like an obituary, there was just me. My name is Ian. Not a hero, not a victim, just a soul who trusted too much. I was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday. The kind who stayed on the phone even after the other person had stopped talking, just in case they needed someone to listen to their silence. I used to believe in the good in people, even when the evidence pointed elsewhere. My childhood was quiet, but not empty. Raised by a mother who loved me with all the strength her fragile bones could offer and a father who loved me only in the absence of his rage, I learned early on how to smile through storms. I grew up with a brother who was more shadow than sibling, close in blood, but distant in soul. He taught me how cold someone can be even when they live under the same roof. But I still loved him. That was my weakness. I loved too purely. I trusted too freely. I gave too much. In college, I was known as the quiet one, the one who helped others with assignments, who lent books and rarely asked for them back, who listened more than he spoke. That's where I met her, Sanaa. She was laughter wrapped in mystery, eyes that carried oceans and lips that could calm wars. The kind of person who made you believe that the world was kinder than it actually was. She came into my life like spring, unexpected, refreshing, full of color. We became inseparable. Everyone thought we were meant to be, the calm and the storm, the stillness and the spark. She filled in the cracks I never knew I had. And for the first time, I felt visible. I wasn't just existing. I was living. Then there were my friends, or so I thought. Rafiq, my roommate and brother in everything but blood. The one who promised loyalty in 1,000 different ways. And Zara, the soft-hearted poet with a sharp tongue, she called me her safe space. Together, we were a circle unbreakable. Or so I believed. But time has a way of revealing what eyes refuse to see. It begins subtly. A conversation that stops when you enter the room. A missed call not returned. A secret shared that you were never meant to hear. Sanaa started becoming distant. Not physically, but emotionally. Her eyes didn't search for mine in crowded rooms like they used to. Rafiq's loyalty turned into silence. And Zara, well, even her poetry stopped rhyming with honesty. I still remember the day everything started to crack. It was just another evening. The lights in our apartment flickered softly. The air smelt of old books and cardamom chai. I walked in, smiling, carrying food for all of us. But the smile died before I could even speak. They were already eating. My seat was taken. My presence, unacknowledged. It was a small thing, maybe to someone else. But for me, it was the beginning of a slow funeral. A silent betrayal that would soon grow louder. Looking back, there were signs. So many signs. The messages left on read. The glances exchanged behind my back. The way Sanaa flinched when I touched her hand, not with fear, but guilt. I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I stayed silent, thinking maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was the problem. I began to fade from their conversations, from their plans, from their lives. And still, I gave them the benefit of doubt. Because when you've spent your whole life being the giver, you don't know how to stop. You don't recognize when it's time to walk away. You stay, hoping someone will change. But nothing did. One by one, they replaced me. In conversations, in outings, in memories. Until I was nothing more than a shadow, haunting the places I once filled with laughter. And then they made it official. A message. A group text. 4 lines. We need space. You're not the same anymore. Maybe you should take a step back. We wish you well. They killed me in sentences. They erased me in silence. And the worst part? They thought I wouldn't notice. They believed I would disappear quietly, because that's what people like me do. But I didn't. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I saw them for who they were. Not monsters, but mirrors. Reflecting my own naivety. My blind faith. My misplaced loyalty. I stopped blaming them. And I started questioning myself. Why had I ignored the signs? Why had I kept giving, even when I was empty? Who was I when no one was watching? That's when the real transformation began. When the ashes of who I used to be started to whisper a new identity. One not shaped by their acceptance, but by my resilience. I began to rebuild. Not with bricks of revenge, but with stones of self-worth. And even though they had tried to write the final chapter of my story without me, I picked up the pen again. Because I was never theirs to erase. The moment betrayal took its final shape, it was as if the world around me shifted, but the earth beneath me stayed frozen. Like a stage set for a play I never auditioned for, I was now the unwanted character, written out in silent scenes. At first, the shock numbed me. How could people I loved turn into strangers overnight? How could they read my name and pronounce it like a curse, not a blessing? My inner voice whispered questions that had no answers. Was I really the problem? Did I fail without knowing? Was I blind to every warning? Each day became a battlefield. I fought invisible wars, the fight to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. I reached out. I sent messages, careful, calm, hoping for an explanation. But the silence was louder than any response. One evening, after a particularly cold day filled with empty texts and missed calls, I sat alone in my room, scrolling through our old photos. Smiles frozen in time, memories I thought were real, now felt like illusions. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You should stop. You're only making it worse. It wasn't from them. It was someone else. Someone who wanted me gone. That was when I realized the betrayal was bigger than just a group of friends turning their backs. It was a network of lies, a web of deceit I had unknowingly stepped into. I wasn't just erased. I was erased publicly. Rumors spread like wildfire, distorted versions of me, half-truths coated with venom. I was accused of things I never did. I became the villain in a story I never wrote. The isolation was suffocating. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes. Judging, whispering, pretending. I started doubting my own reflection. Was I the person they said I was? Could I trust my own mind anymore? One night, as the city lights flickered outside my window, I heard a knock. I opened the door. Sana stood there. Her eyes were wet, her voice trembling. I didn't want it to end like this, she said. I looked at her, the woman who had been my closest friend, my greatest betrayal. Then why? I whispered. She couldn't answer. That silence screamed louder than any excuse. But it was also a moment of clarity. I wasn't a victim of random cruelty. I was caught in a story of broken promises, jealousy, and fear. Fear that I would expose truths they wanted hidden. Fear that I would rise when they tried to push me down. The conflict wasn't just external. It was inside me, between the urge to fight back and the need to heal, between anger and forgiveness, between despair and hope. Days turned into nights filled with endless questions and restless thoughts. I began to write, not to explain but to understand. Letters I never sent. Words I never spoke. I revisited every moment. The smiles, the whispers, the silence. And slowly, the rising tension within me became a fire that refused to die. I realized betrayal was not the end, but a beginning of strength forged in pain, of courage born in loneliness, of truth shining through darkness. And so, even when they read my name in whispers of betrayal, I prepared to stand tall. Because survival is the most powerful revenge. The night it all came crashing down, the world outside seemed calm, deceivingly calm, like a glass lake hiding a storm beneath its surface. But inside me, the storm had been raging for months, years even. Every moment of betrayal, every cold glance, every whispered lie was about to culminate in a moment I would never forget. It started with a call. Sana's voice, fragile and trembling, cracked through the silence. We need to talk. Face to face. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to run, to hide from the confrontation. But the part that had survived every heartbreak whispered, "This is your moment." We met in the cafe where everything began. Laughter, friendship, dreams. The place was almost empty. The low hum of quiet conversations wrapped around us. She looked at me with eyes that no longer held the warmth I remembered. "I'm sorry, Ian," she said softly. Those words felt like shards of glass. Apologies from the one who shattered your world always sting the most. I never meant to hurt you. Things just got complicated. Complicated? Betrayal is never simple. I swallowed my anger. Instead, I asked the question burning inside me. Why? Why did you and the others betray me? Was I so easy to discard? She hesitated. Then the truth spilled out like a dam breaking. It wasn't just me. It was fear. Fear that you'd change everything. You were different, too kind, too trusting. Some of us thought you were naive, but others thought you were dangerous. Dangerous? I echoed, confused. Yes. You made us face truths we didn't want to see about ourselves. You showed kindness where there should have been none. It made us uncomfortable, so we pushed you away. Her confession was a mirror reflecting all my pain, but also a window to understanding. I realized the betrayal wasn't just about me. It was about their own insecurities and fears. But forgiveness wasn't immediate. I wanted answers. Closure. So I asked about the lies, the rumors, the silent exile. Sana lowered her eyes. We were scared. Scared of losing what we had. So, instead of facing it, we built walls of lies. I looked around the cafe, memories swirling, the laughter, the shared secrets, the broken trust. In that moment, I made a choice. I could let the pain consume me or rise above it. I chose to rise. We parted that evening with an unspoken understanding. Wounds don't heal overnight, but truths set us free. The days that followed were hard. Facing those who betrayed me was painful, but necessary. I confronted Rafik, who admitted his jealousy and cowardice. I spoke to Zara, who apologized for her silence and cowardice in not defending me. Not everyone was ready to reconcile, but some were. Most importantly, I started healing within myself. I found strength in solitude, in reflection. I rebuilt my life, piece by piece. I learned that betrayal isn't the end of a story, it's a chapter. And sometimes, the darkest chapters teach us how to write the brightest ones. I stopped seeking validation from those who abandoned me. Instead, I learned to validate myself. I realized that survival was not about revenge, but about reclaiming my life. Every scar became a lesson. Every tear, a step toward resilience. And when my name was read again, not as a casualty of betrayal, but as a survivor, I stood tall. Because I was still alive, still breathing, still hopeful. Sometimes, the deepest wounds don't just break us, they remake us. When betrayal cuts through the heart, it feels like the end of the world. But what if it's actually the beginning of something greater? I stood at the edge of despair, reading my name in whispers of betrayal, but I chose to rise, stronger, wiser, and more alive than ever before. What will you do when your trust is shattered? Will you let the pain drown you, or will you let it teach you? Life isn't about avoiding the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. The truth is, betrayal is not a reflection of your worth, but of others' fears and insecurities. Your name, your story, your soul, they are not defined by the opinions or actions of those who turn away. If you find yourself betrayed, remember, survival is not just about holding on, it's about letting go of what harms you and embracing what heals you. Ask yourself, what part of me will I refuse to lose today? Because you are still here, still breathing, still worthy. And sometimes, the greatest triumph is simply staying alive through the darkest nights. So, when your name is read in the echoes of betrayal, know this, you are not alone, and you are far from defeated. Your story is still being written. What will your next chapter say?